Ethan Carver had closed multi-million-dollar deals without blinking, but nothing in his 40 years prepared him for what he saw that winter afternoon outside Rockefeller Center. In the crowd of hurried New Yorkers, two small girls huddled against a marble pillar, thin coats, cracked shoes, and eyes far older than their bodies. He almost walked past them like everyone else until one of the girls lifted her chin and said, steady and brave, "Sir, we can clean your shoes for a bowl of soup." That single sentence, earnest, desperate, dignified, struck him harder than any boardroom blow. But what truly stopped his breath was the flash of a ring on the child's finger. A ring he knew. A ring he once slid onto the hand of the only woman he ever loved. Snow fell in soft flakes as Ethan stepped toward the girls. The streets buzzed with holiday shoppers and street performers, yet the twins seemed frozen in a world apart. One was slightly taller, with warm hazel eyes. The other had darker hair and clutched a folded paper contract offering shoe cleaning services. Their attempt at professionalism would have been charming if it hadn't been so heartbreaking. "What are your names?" Ethan asked gently. "I'm Hazel," the taller one said. "This is my sister Holly." Holly nodded, though her gaze stayed glued to the ground, her shoulders tight as if expecting to be yelled at. "You don't have to clean my shoes," Ethan said, kneeling to their level. "Are you two out here alone?" Hazel's chin lifted with surprising pride. "We're not begging. We're working." "I didn't say you were," Ethan replied softly. When Hazel reached up to brush her hair from her cheek, the silver ring glinted again, a simple band engraved with two letters, E.R., his initials, and hers. He felt the sidewalk tilt beneath him. Hazel. That ring. "Where did you get it?" Instantly, both girls stiffened. Holly grabbed Hazel's hand, as if protecting the ring itself. "It's our mom's," Holly whispered. She said, "We must never lose it. It's the last thing she owns that means something good." Ethan swallowed. "What's your mother's name?" Hazel hesitated, studying him with the wary intuition of a child who'd learned not to trust easily. "Why do you care? Because—" Ethan's voice failed before he pushed through it. "Because I think I know her." Hazel and Holly exchanged a worried glance. In a small, trembling voice, Holly said, "Her name is Liana, Liana Reyes." The world around Ethan seemed to dissolve, the traffic noise, the crowds, the swirl of snow. All of it fell away, leaving only the pounding in his chest. Liana. After 12 years of silence, after disappearing without a trace, after every unanswered message, she was here. And these girls, these twins. Hazel's eyes narrowed thoughtfully. "Do you know our mom?" she asked again, firmer this time. Ethan tried to speak, but the weight of the truth lodged painfully in his throat. "I loved her. A long time ago." Holly's lip quivered. "She's really sick. We tried working, but people won't let us. They say kids shouldn't be alone out here." "Where is she now?" Ethan asked urgently. Hazel bit her lip. "At St. Jude's Hospital. The doctors said she might not wake up today. We came out to earn money for medicine." A surge of fear rose in him, raw, immediate. "Why didn't you ask for help from family? We don't have any," Hazel said simply. Ethan felt a sharp ache in his chest. "You do," he said quietly. "You just didn't know it." Before either girl could respond, Holly tugged at Hazel's coat. "Hazel, he might be watching." Ethan's focus sharpened. "Who's watching you?" Hazel's face paled. "A man. He followed us yesterday. Mom told us if he ever found us again, we had to run." "What man?" Ethan pressed. "We don't know his name," Holly whispered. "But Mom said he was dangerous. She said he wasn't allowed near us anymore." A gust of wind cut through the air, and Holly shivered hard. Ethan immediately removed his cashmere scarf and wrapped it around her small shoulders. She flinched at first, then relaxed as Hazel whispered, "It's okay. He's nice." Ethan steadied his voice. "Listen to me. You're safe now. I'm going to take you to your mother." Hazel studied him again, those deep, thinking eyes far too accustomed to disappointment. "What if you're lying? I'm not." Ethan looked her straight in the eyes. "Hazel, I would never lie about something like this." After a long moment, Hazel nodded once. "Okay," she said, "but if you hurt us, I'll scream louder than anyone in New York." Ethan almost smiled. "That's fair." He held out his hand. Hazel hesitated, then placed her small cold fingers into his. Holly followed, clutching his other hand like a lifeline. As they stepped into the snowy avenue, Hazel spoke softly, almost to herself. "Mom always said good things happen in strange ways. Maybe today is one of those days." Ethan glanced down at the twins, their matching steps, their fragile hope, and felt a certainty settling into his bones. The ring wasn't a coincidence. The girls weren't a coincidence. Liana wasn't a coincidence. Something long buried was rising back into his life. And he knew, whatever waited at St. Jude's, this was only the beginning. Ethan had walked into countless hospitals before, charity visits, funding meetings, ribbon cuttings, but never like this. Never with 2 shivering children clinging to his coat as if he were the last safe thing in the world. St. Jude's Hospital loomed ahead, its glass entrance glowing against the gray New York sky. Inside, the smell of antiseptic and the low murmur of voices created a fragile silence, the kind that makes every footstep feel too loud. Hazel held Holly's hand tightly as they approached the reception desk. The clerk glanced up, her expression softening when she saw the girls. "Can I help you?" "We're here for our mom," Hazel said. "Liana Reyes. She's we think in the emergency wing." The clerk typed quickly, frowning at the screen. "Your mother was admitted early this morning. She's in the cardiac unit." Holly squeezed Hazel's hand until her knuckles turned white. Ethan rested a steady palm on the girl's shoulders. "We'd like to see her." The clerk's gaze drifted to Ethan, his tailored coat, the concern in his eyes, the protective stance. People often judged him by his suits or his bank account, but this woman seemed to sense something else, something more human, and nodded gently. "You can take the elevator to the 5th floor. A nurse will help you from there." The elevator ride felt endless. Holly leaned into Ethan as if her small body finally surrendered its exhaustion. Hazel, ever the little soldier, kept her face steady, even as her trembling fingers gave her away. When the doors opened, a nurse intercepted them. She introduced herself as Meredith with careful eyes that had seen too many families break in this hallway. "Are you here for Miss Reyes?" "Yes," Ethan answered. Meredith knelt in front of the twins. "Your mom is stable for now," she said softly. "But she's in serious condition. She has advanced heart failure. We're keeping her comfortable while we prepare options." Hazel's lips parted in shock. She told us she was tired, but she said she'd be okay." Meredith took Hazel's hand. "She's been tired for a long time, sweetheart, but she fought very hard to take care of you too." Ethan felt a tightening in his throat. Liana had always been strong, stubbornly so, but imagining her fighting through this illness alone while sheltering 2 kids cut through him in a way he wasn't prepared for. Meredith led them down a quiet hallway. "She's asleep now," she warned. "You can go in, but she might not wake up." The twins' steps slowed. Ethan opened the door gently. Liana lay against white sheets, paler than he remembered, her dark hair spread across the pillow. Machines hummed around her, tracking each fragile heartbeat. For a moment, Ethan couldn't breathe. Holly climbed onto the chair beside the bed and whispered, "Hi, Mommy." "We're here." Hazel stood close behind her, voice cracking as she added, We brought someone with us. Someone who knows you." Ethan approached the bedside slowly. Seeing Liana like this felt like time itself was mocking him, showing him everything he'd lost, everything he didn't know he still cared about. Meredith stepped aside, but lingered in the doorway, watching the scene with quiet respect. Hazel looked up at Ethan. "You said you knew her." How Ethan kept his voice low. "We grew up together. She meant a lot to me." Holly reached for her mother's limp hand. She said once she had a person who made her feel safe. "I think that was you." His chest tightened. "I never stopped thinking about her," he confessed. "But she disappeared. I didn't know why." Hazel studied him carefully, her expression pinched with curiosity and doubt. "Why didn't you find her?" The question landed heavily. "I tried," he said, "for years, but she left without a trace." Meredith re-entered quietly. "Mr. Carver, may I speak with you outside?" He followed her into the hall. Her tone shifted to professional, but compassionate. "Ms. Reyes's condition is extremely serious. She needs surgery, a valve replacement, but the procedure is expensive, and she doesn't have insurance." "Money isn't an issue," Ethan said immediately. Meredith nodded, but lowered her voice. "There's something else. Her medical file. Parts of it are incomplete. Certain personal details were removed, not by us." Ethan's brows knit together. "Removed?" "Yes." Almost as if someone didn't want her past traced. A cold realization crawled up his spine. "Who would do that?" Meredith hesitated. "I don't know. But she's been admitted under multiple temporary addresses for the last few years. It looks like she was hiding." Hazel suddenly appeared in the doorway, her voice small. "Is she going to die?" Meredith knelt again. "We're doing everything we can." Ethan crouched beside Hazel. "I'll make sure she gets the best care, I promise." Hazel's eyes filled, but she didn't cry. "She doesn't sleep much," she whispered. "She wakes up scared sometimes. She says someone might find us." Ethan steadied her trembling shoulders. "Hazel, has she ever told you who she's afraid of?" The girl swallowed. "Just that he's dangerous, and that he wants us." Before Ethan could ask more, Holly ran into the hallway, panic in her voice. "Mom moved. She's waking up." They hurried back into the room. Liana's eyes fluttered open, unfocused at first, then sharpening when she saw her daughters. The girls leaned over her, clutching her hands. Then her gaze drifted to Ethan. For a moment, her whole body stilled, her lips parted. Ethan. His name, spoken with disbelief and something like sorrow, filled the room. He stepped closer. "I'm here, Liana." A tear slid down her cheek. "You shouldn't be." "Why not?" he asked softly. Her voice cracked. "Because none of this was supposed to touch you." He felt Hazel and Holly flinch at their mother's distress. "Liana," he said gently, "whatever happened, I'm not walking away." Her eyes shut as if bracing for something painful. "You don't understand. The past you came from, and the past I ran from, they're about to collide." Ethan reached for her hand. "Then we face it together." But Liana shook her head, tears spilling freely now. "I left because someone made me," she whispered. "And if he knows you're here, everything gets worse." The hotel room was warm, quiet, and safe. Three things Hazel and Holly hadn't felt in a long time. Ethan had checked them into a small suite near St. Jude's, a place with soft lamps and thick blankets where the girls could finally relax after days of sleeping in shelters and hallways. But even comfort couldn't erase their fear. As soon as the door clicked shut, Holly climbed onto the couch and curled up while Hazel paced with restless energy. "You're sure Mom will be okay while we're gone?" Hazel asked for the third time. "She's with the best doctors in the city," Ethan said. And I'll be taking you right back in the morning. Hazel nodded, though doubt lingered in her eyes. Holly tugged gently on Ethan's sleeve. Can I show you something? Ethan sat beside her. Holly opened her backpack and removed a worn envelope, edges creased from years of handling. She glanced at Hazel, who hesitated before giving a small nod. We're not supposed to show anyone, Holly whispered. But you already know, Mom. Maybe it's okay. She slid a photograph into his hand. The picture showed Liana standing beside a man Ethan didn't recognize, mid-30s. Dark hair, a smirk that didn't reach his eyes. Something about the man's posture felt possessive, almost predatory. His arm wrapped around Liana's waist, pulling her closer than she seemed comfortable with. Ethan felt his jaw tighten. Who is he? Hazel sat down beside him, folding her legs neatly. His name is Reed. Mom said he used to help us, but then he changed. He got mean. One night she told us to pack everything we could fit in our bags and we ran. Holly continued. He came to the shelter once. He yelled at Mom. She hid us behind the kitchen door. After that we moved a lot. Ethan stared at the photo, unable to stop the swell of anger. Has he ever hurt you? Both girls shook their heads, but Hazel added, he scared us a lot. Ethan forced himself to breathe evenly. You're safe now. He's not going to come near you again. Hazel pressed her lips together. He followed us yesterday at the train station. That hit Ethan like a blow. He leaned forward. Did he talk to you? No, Hazel said. But he looked at us like he knew where we were going. Mom always said Reed liked to finish things. Ethan didn't like the sound of that phrase. Not one bit. He took a picture of the photo with his phone. I know someone who can help us figure out where he is. Hazel's brows lifted. Like a police officer. Not exactly, he said, but close. He stepped into the hallway to make the call. When his old friend Sam from the FBI answered, Ethan didn't bother with pleasantries. I need you to run a name. Reed Dalton. Connection to harassment stalking may be worse. Sam exhaled slowly. Dalton. I've heard that name. Give me an hour. Ethan re-entered the room. The girls were sharing a bowl of cereal from the minibar, small comforts in a world that had offered them far too few. He sat on the edge of the bed watching them, two children trying to find normalcy in the middle of chaos. An hour later, Sam called back. You need to be careful, he said. Dalton has a record. Assault charges, violation of restraining orders, suspected in a fraud ring out of New Jersey. He spent 18 months in prison and got out last spring. Does he know about the kids? Ethan asked quietly. I can't say for sure. But Ethan, guys like him don't let go. If he's looking for Liana, he's not doing it for harmless reasons. Ethan hung up, feeling a cold certainty settle into his stomach. Reed wasn't just a problem from Liana's past. He was a threat from their present. He stayed awake long after the girls fell asleep, thinking about Liana lying in that hospital bed fighting for her life. Thinking about how she'd tried to carry all this for years alone. Thinking of Hazel's brave chin and Holly's trembling hands. Around midnight, Ethan stood to check the door. Just as he reached for the lock, he saw movement under the hallway light, a shadow crossing the carpet without making a sound. He froze. A moment later, a man's silhouette passed the peephole. Tall, broad-shouldered, moving slowly as if searching for something or someone. Ethan's heart hammered in his chest. He listened, waiting for the footsteps to return. 30 seconds passed. Then a minute. Silence. To avoid waking the girls, he stepped back quietly and dialed the front desk. Was anyone on this floor just now? Maintenance, housekeeping, security? The clerk answered. No one should be on your floor at this hour, sir. Ethan's pulse tightened. Then, send security up. Someone is roaming the hallway. He ended the call and returned to the girls who remained asleep. Hazel curled protectively around her sister. Minutes later, security knocked. They searched the hallway, the stairwell, the elevators. No one was found. But Ethan had seen enough to know the threat was close. Too close. The next morning, Ethan woke to the sound of Hazel rummaging through her backpack. She looked up, eyes anxious but determined. "Mr. Carver," she said, "do you think Reed found us?" Ethan didn't want to lie. "Not to these kids. I think he's looking," he said carefully. "But he's not going to get near you or your mom, I promise." Hazel didn't cry, but her voice thinned. "We've run for so long. I'm tired of running." Holly moved closer to her sister. "Me too." Ethan knelt beside them, steady and firm. "You're not running anymore. Not while I'm here." Hazel nodded slowly, trusting him more than she had yesterday. Before they left the room, Holly tugged on his sleeve again. "Do you think Mom will wake up today? I hope so," Ethan said. "And when she does, she won't be alone." As he guided the twins toward the elevator, Ethan glanced once more down the hallway, the same hallway where the shadow had passed hours earlier. The air felt heavier now. Tense. Reed Dalton wasn't just a memory in a photograph. He was out there and closing in. Ethan had spent the entire elevator ride to the 5th floor, replaying the look in Liana's eyes when she whispered his name, raw fear mixed with something else he couldn't yet name. Hazel and Holly walked beside him, their small hands wrapped around his sleeves, as if anchoring themselves to him. When they reached Liana's room, the girls rushed ahead, relieved to see their mother sitting upright, propped by pillows, her breathing steadier than the night before. She smiled faintly as they climbed onto the bed. "My brave girls," she whispered, kissing their foreheads. "I'm so glad you're here." Ethan lingered at the doorway, unsure whether she wanted him there. But when her gaze shifted toward him, something in her expression softened. "You should come in," she murmured. He stepped closer. The room felt too quiet, too small for the weight it held. "We need to talk," Liana said softly. Not just to Ethan, but to her daughters. "But before we do, Hazel, Holly, I need to say something important." Hazel leaned in, eyes wide. "What is it?" Mom Liana stroked their hair, her voice trembling. "I'm sorry for all the running. I'm sorry for the nights you went hungry or scared. I didn't want that life for you." Holly pressed her head against her mother's arm. "We're okay now. Mr. Carver is helping us." Liana's eyes flicked to Ethan, gratitude and dread entwined. "He shouldn't have to." Ethan stepped forward. "Liana, you don't have to apologize for protecting your kids." "Yes," she said quietly, "I do, because you deserve the truth. All of you." Hazel looked between them, confusion knitting her brows. "Mom? What truth?" Liana hesitated. For a moment, Ethan thought she might change her mind, but then she exhaled, steadying herself. "Hazel, Holly, Ethan is more than just a friend. He's someone I once loved. Someone who loved me." Holly blinked, like a boyfriend. Liana nodded. "Yes." Hazel studied Ethan carefully. "Is he our dad?" The question froze the room. Liana's breath caught her voice breaking. "Yes, he is." Both girls gasped, surprised, relieved, overwhelmed. Holly's eyes filled instantly. "We have a dad," Ethan's chest tightened. "You do," he said softly. "And I'm right here." The twins clung to each other, processing the revelation in their quiet, brave way. But Liana wasn't done. She gathered her strength for the harder truth. "I never told Ethan because I didn't get the chance," she said. "I didn't leave him willingly. I was forced." Ethan stepped closer. "By who?" Liana swallowed hard. "Your father." The words hit harder than any blow Reed could deliver. "My father," Ethan repeated, stunned. "He forced you to leave me." Liana nodded. "He came to see me 12 years ago. He knew I was pregnant. He said you were destined for a life that didn't include someone like me. He gave me money, told me to disappear, said if I didn't, he'd destroy your future. And maybe mine. The room felt suddenly tilted, unstable. He said he was protecting you, she continued. But really, he was protecting the life he wanted you to live, his version of success. And I believed him. I thought leaving was the only way to keep you safe. Ethan felt the air leave his lungs. He braced a hand on the foot of the bed. Why didn't you tell me? Why didn't you call? Because later, things got worse, she admitted. After the twins were born, Reed came into our lives. At first, he seemed kind. He helped with groceries, fixed things in the apartment. But he changed. He became possessive, controlling. He said I owed him for helping us. When I tried to leave, he threatened to take the girls. Hazel's voice trembled. That's why we ran. Liana pulled her daughters close. I didn't want Ethan involved. Reed is dangerous. And your father, he had already made his choice. Ethan's voice cracked. No, he made a choice for me. He turned away briefly, fighting the burn behind his eyes. So much time stolen. So many years he could have held these girls, loved them, protected them. I'm here now, he said firmly. And I'm not leaving again, not you, not them. Hazel slipped her hand into his. Promise. Ethan knelt beside her. I promise. Before anyone could speak again, the door burst open, and a doctor rushed in, breathless. Mr. Carver, you need to come with me. It's urgent. Ethan stood quickly. What's happening? The doctor glanced at the girls and lowered his voice. Security found someone trying to get past the nurse's station. He claimed to be a relative of the Reyes family. Liana stiffened. Reed. Hazel hugged her mother tightly. He found us. Ethan turned to the doctor. Where's he now? Security chased him off the floor, but he disappeared into the stairwell. We've locked down the unit, but... The doctor hesitated. He was carrying something under his jacket. We believe it was a weapon. Holly whimpered, burying her face into Liana's arm. Ethan's jaw clenched. I'm not letting him near them. He stormed toward the hallway, but Liana's voice stopped him. Ethan, be careful. Reed isn't just angry, he's obsessed. I know, Ethan said, and I'll handle him. As he left the room, he loosened his tie, adrenaline flooding his body. The hallway outside buzzed with frantic staff and uniformed security. Down the far end of the corridor, the stairwell door creaked shut. Ethan ran. He pushed through the door just in time to hear footsteps echo below, a frantic, heavy pattern. The stairwell smelled of disinfectant and cold steel. When Ethan started downward, a voice rose from the shadows. You should have stayed out of this. Reed. He emerged on the landing, eyes, wild jaw twisted into a smile that didn't belong to a sane man. These girls were mine, Reed hissed. She was mine, and you took everything. Ethan stepped forward slowly. You don't own them. You never did. You think you're a hero, Reed barked. She ran to me. I kept them alive. You terrorized them, Ethan said. Reed pulled something from his jacket, something metallic. I'm taking them back. No, Ethan said. You're not. Reed lunged. Ethan braced himself. And the fight for the family he never knew he had began. The police lights still flickered outside the hospital long after Reed had been taken away in handcuffs. Ethan remained with the girls in a quiet consultation room, the adrenaline slowly draining from his body, leaving behind exhaustion and a bone-deep ache in his ribs where Reed had struck him. Hazel and Holly stayed tucked against him, refusing to let go. Their small hands clung to his shirt as if afraid he might disappear the moment they loosened their grip. When a nurse stepped in to say Liana was awake and asking for him, the twins insisted on coming too. Ethan carried Holly held Hazel's hand, and walk them back to the room where everything had begun, where secrets were confessed, and a future had begun to form, fragile but real. Liana weakly lifted her head as they entered. Relief washed over her face the second she saw all three of them. "Are you hurt?" she whispered to Ethan, noticing his bandaged arm and the bruise already forming along his jaw. "I'm fine," he assured her gently. "You're the one who needs to rest." Hazel climbed onto the bed and curled gently at her mother's side. Holly followed, pressing a kiss to Liana's cheek. "He's gone," Mom Holly said softly. "He can't hurt us anymore." Liana closed her eyes, tears spilling freely. "I'm so sorry I couldn't stop him before." "You did everything you could," Ethan said. "And now it's over. He's facing charges, serious ones." She nodded, but her breathing trembled. "I don't want this life for them anymore, Ethan. Running, hiding, being afraid of every knock at the door. They deserve better." "They will have better," Ethan said. "I promise you that." For the first time since he found them on the street corner, she let herself believe him. The days that followed were a blur of police interviews, medical tests, legal arrangements, and gentle conversations with two little girls whose world had changed faster than they could fully understand. Through it all, Ethan never left their side. He slept in the hospital chair, brought the girls to and from their temporary apartment across from the hospital, met with social workers, and hired a lawyer to make sure Reed's case would move forward without loopholes. But more than anything, he stayed present. He listened to Hazel talk about her drawings, and to Holly whisper her fears about dark hallways. He helped them choose new clothes, held their hands crossing streets, and learned the ways they mirrored each other, the way Hazel frowned when she concentrated, the way Holly chewed her lip when anxious. He learned what it felt like to be a father, and he fell into the role faster and deeper than he ever expected. 3 weeks later, when Liana was finally discharged, the four of them walked out of the hospital together. Hazel held Ethan's left hand. Holly held his right. Liana walked slowly beside them, bundled in Ethan's coat because the December wind off Lake Michigan cut colder than she remembered. "Where are we going?" Hazel asked, watching the city traffic pass by. "Home," Ethan answered. Liana hesitated. "Ethan, the girls and I don't want to be a burden." "You're not," he said simply. "You never were. And this isn't charity, it's family." She looked away, her eyes softening with a mixture of hope and disbelief. She'd learned to guard her heart too well over the years, but he was patient. He waited for her to take his hand. She did. Ethan didn't take them back to his penthouse. It hadn't felt like home to him for years. Instead, he brought them to a house he had quietly purchased during Liana's recovery. A spacious, light-filled craftsman in Evanston, with a big backyard and a wide porch perfect for summer evenings. The girls' rooms were already set up, painted in soft colors Liana had once mentioned liking back in college. Bookshelves, a play nook, cozy quilts, a kitchen filled with warmth instead of stainless steel. When Hazel walked into her new bedroom, she froze. A framed drawing hung on the wall, her drawing the one she'd sketched during her first quiet afternoon at the hospital. Holly found a shelf full of chapter books she'd whispered she wanted to read one day, when things weren't so hard. Liana watched from the doorway, hands pressed over her mouth as she tried to keep her emotions steady. "You did all this," she whispered. Ethan shrugged softly. "It felt right. And I wanted the first place you live without fear to be a home you chose." She stepped closer. "Ethan, thank you doesn't even begin to cover. You owe me nothing," he said, touching her cheek. "But if you're willing, I'd like us to try building something real. Not rushed, not forced, just us." Her breath caught. "I'm scared, I know," he said. "So am I." She looked down the hallway toward the girls, crackling with laughter as they explored the house. Then she met his eyes again. "Let's try," she whispered. That night, they shared their first dinner at the long oak table, A simple meal, but warm and peaceful, in a way none of them had felt in years. The girls talked about school, about wanting to plant flowers in spring, about maybe getting a dog. When they finally settled into bed, Ethan read them a bedtime story, his voice steady, patient, soft. Dad Hazel murmured when the lights dimmed. "Will you be here in the morning?" Ethan felt something inside him break wide open. Always. After the girls fell asleep, he stepped outside onto the back porch. The December sky was clear, the moon bright above the freshly fallen snow. He didn't hear Liana at first when she joined him, wrapping a blanket around her shoulders. "They're safe," she whispered. For the first time in their life, they're safe. Ethan slipped an arm around her. "And so are you." She rested her head against him. "I never thought I'd get a second chance at this at us." "Some things are worth waiting for," he said. She looked up at him, eyes shimmering. "Do you remember the night you gave me that ring? Your grandmother's ring?" He laughed softly. "You made me swear it wasn't a proposal." "I was so young," she murmured. "So scared of losing myself." "You never lost yourself," he said. "Life tried to pull you under, but you fought your way back." She touched his cheek gently. "I want to build a life with you. Not for survival, but because I love you." He leaned into her touch, relief washing over him like warmth after a long winter. "Then let's build it. Brick by brick, day by day." She smiled, the kind that lit her entire face. As the wind rustled through the bare branches of the oak tree in their yard, Ethan pulled her close, feeling the shape of a future he once thought impossible, built not from wealth or legacy, but from the raw, quiet strength of love rediscovered. Inside, Hazel and Holly slept peacefully. And for the first time in a long, long time, so did their mother. A new beginning didn't need perfection. It just needed a place to finally come home. In the end, the story of Ethan, Liana, Hazel, and Holly unfolded into something none of them could have predicted when that cold New York afternoon first brought their worlds back together. What started as a chance encounter on a crowded sidewalk became the turning point that rebuilt a family once torn apart by fear, secrets, and choices made in desperation. Ethan, a man who had lived most of his adult life surrounded by wealth but starved of real connection, found himself holding the hands of two little girls whose courage outshined every boardroom victory he'd ever had. And through them, he rediscovered the one person he had never stopped searching for, Liana, the woman who held both his past and his future. Liana's journey had been one of survival. For years, she carried the burden of protecting her daughters alone, running from a man who threatened their safety, and from a world that never seemed to show mercy. Her strength was not loud or dramatic, it was quiet, steady, woven into the way she comforted her girls, even when she had nothing left to give. When Ethan re-entered her life, she didn't fall into his arms. She hesitated, questioned, and slowly allowed herself to believe that safety and love were still possible. Little by little, she let down walls built from years of hardship and found peace in a home where fear no longer dictated every decision. For Hazel and Holly, life transformed in ways they had never imagined. The streets where they once worked for scraps were replaced by warm rooms, soft blankets, and a father whose presence meant more than any gift money could buy. Their laughter, timid at first, became bright and unrestrained. They learned how to sleep without checking shadows. They learned how to run without looking back. And they learned what it meant to belong. Ethan, the man who once defined himself by his success, discovered that true fulfillment had nothing to do with his business empire. It was in the whispered questions at bedtime, the small hands curled around his, the way Hazel and Holly leaned on him, as if he had always been there. Through them, he finally understood the meaning of love that endures, love that rebuilds what was broken and creates something stronger in its place. Their story teaches us powerful lessons worth carrying into our own lives. First, that compassion can change the entire course of someone's journey. Ethan could have walked past the girls without a thought. Instead, he paused, and that moment changed 4 lives forever. Sometimes, the greatest miracles begin with the smallest acts of kindness. Second, that the past does not decide who you are allowed to become. Liana's hardships did not diminish her worth, and her daughter's beginnings did not define their future. Each step forward was an act of courage, a declaration that they were more than what had happened to them. And third, that love is not measured by perfection, but by presence. Ethan wasn't there for the early years of his daughter's lives, but he showed up when it mattered most. Love proves itself through commitment, through consistency, through choosing to stay even when it's difficult. If this story touched your heart, if it reminded you of the resilience of family and the healing power of love, we invite you to become part of our community. Your support allows us to continue sharing stories that inspire, uplift, and remind us of the goodness still present in everyday life. So before you go, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, leave a comment sharing what this story meant to you, and hit the like button if it moved you. Every bit of encouragement helps us bring you more heartfelt stories, just like this one. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.